We trust our kids and family members with strangers every day when we send them to school. But what if the person overseeing them was a murderer? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Killer Concepts, the place where we talk about all things true crime. My name is Peyton. Boy, have I missed you guys and making these videos. Before we get started, please make sure to hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss any future content. I do want to warn you, our lighting may be a little off as well as the audio because I haven't made a video here yet, so I don't have everything dialed in. So as you can see, the office isn't fully put together yet, at least on my side of it, but my tapestry will eventually be making a reappearance, but until then we have these plain walls as a beautiful background. I had originally told myself that I was going to post throughout the move and the weeks after, but it just didn't happen. I also kind of disappeared off of social media, so I am sorry for that, but I did try and keep you updated on my community tab. So sometimes I like to go through Oxygen's website to see if there are any stories that I would like to share with you that I have not heard of. So when I saw the headline of a news article stating, quote, elementary principal picks up tips from CSI exhibit before killing husband in complex murder plot, end quote, I had to do some more research and share this story with you. With that being said, today we are talking about the murder of a man named Todd Chance, a father of 3 and a husband of 17 years. Before we get into his death, I do want to talk a little bit about Todd's life and who he was. I know I have said this before, but I think it is important to remember that these people are people and not just victims, and we always need to remember that when we're talking about them. So according to Jill Setterstrom, who wrote the article I found on Oxygen, Todd Chance was just an everyday man, a regular cowboy. Setterstrom gives a lot of information about his background as a person compared to all the other sources that I compiled. So Todd was born on March 10th, 1968, and he grew up in a small farming community just outside of Bakersfield, California. He often wore a cowboy hat and boots. While he was growing up, he and his siblings tended to the family farm, raising pigs and taking care of their horses. His mom, Diana Chance, talked about his blue 76 Cobra he drove around as a teen, saying that it was a chick magnet for Todd. She said, quote, every day there were notes on the windshield of the car from some little girl that wanted to have him call her, liked his car, thought he was cute, end quote. But apparently as Todd got older, only one woman seemed to really catch his eye, and this would be a woman named Leslie Jenea Chance. But most of this time we're going to call her Jenea. The two met each other while working at a local drugstore. Jenea was also a couple years older than Todd. According to my sources, the two fell quickly for each other, and Todd treated Jenea's daughter Jessica like his own. So it wasn't a surprise to anyone when the two would marry and eventually end up having 2 more daughters. Chance would work as a truck driver, which often resulted in long hours in order to support his family. I also read that he had some other odd jobs to help support them. And while he worked, Jenea Chance would earn her teaching degree and then would eventually become the principal for a local elementary school. Things were looking good for the Chance family. Todd's daughter said he was a great father, and multiple sources described Leslie Jenea Chance as being a beloved member of the community. Oxygen states that the family even went on a trip in the summer of 2013 where they went to Las Vegas. Jessica had just moved out of the house and her 2 sisters were now teenagers. They had the finances to go and spend some time together as a family, and so that is exactly what they did. So nobody would expect it when Todd would end up dead not long after this wonderful trip. So let's get into what happened. So ABC 23 Bakersfield reports that on August 25th, 2013, Todd Chance was found dead in an almond orchard off of Enos Lane and Norwegia Road in northwest Bakersfield, having been shot several times. I'm sorry if I butchered those road names. After the autopsy, it was discovered that Chance had been shot in the hand, which was likely a defense wound, and he was also shot twice in the chest, Oxygen notes. Since his vehicle, a 2011 Ford Mustang, was originally missing, investigators would at first think that his death could have been due to a possible carjacking. Per the U.S. Sun, all that was found nearby were tire tracks that matched his car. Several articles say that this is the same vehicle that would end up being discovered at an intersection about 20 miles away. It was unlocked and abandoned with the murder weapon, Todd Chance's own .38 revolver, lying on the floor. Kern County homicide detective Kevin Brewer said, quote, "Our carjacking theory now is showing less and less evidence, especially now with the car being left open and the gun left inside of it. That was just so rare and unheard of that a carjacking now is not in my mind anymore," end quote. So as always, who would the detectives look at first? The spouse. Setterstrom states that Todd's wife, Jenea, would tell detectives that her husband had left the house at around 7:30 a.m. or 8 a.m. Sunday morning to go to a gun show with his father, Travis Chance. Jenea would do an interview with none other than Andrea Canning from Dateline regarding her husband's death, claiming that she had stayed home to do some work on the computer, and it was pretty much just any typical day. She said that when the police had arrived saying that they had found her husband deceased, that she was stunned. Jenea said to Canning, quote, "It was unbelievable. I couldn't comprehend. He was such a likable guy. He didn't hang out with a rough crowd, you know? He wasn't into drugs. He wasn't into, gambling. It's very baffling." End quote. However, when police would talk to Todd's father, Travis, he would shockingly tell them that he had made no plans with his son that day. Jenea was lying to the police. This is so crazy because did she really not think that police officers would look into what she had told them? Not only would this make detectives look further at Jenea, but what they would end up finding on her husband's phone would possibly give her motive for murder. So investigators would begin searching through Todd's text and Facebook messages when they would locate correspondence between Todd Chance and an ex-fiance, a woman named Carrie Williams. According to Law and Crime, prosecutors said in court that flirty messages via Facebook and text messages would eventually translate into, quote, him asking for a good pic, getting nude photos of her, as well as the two making fun of Leslie Chance, end quote. When this was brought up to Jenea, she would actually try and point fingers at Williams, apparently concerned that she could have had something to do with her husband's murder. However, it wouldn't take long for detectives to rule out Williams, as she was somewhere else and all eyes would be back on Leslie Jenea Chance. Though I don't think they really left her to begin with, and more importantly, they would focus on CCTV footage that they had obtained. This CCTV footage would be the break that the police had been waiting for. Multiple sources mention that this footage would help them trace the killer's movement that day, actually almost exactly. Oxygen states that, quote, a witness in the neighborhood where the car was abandoned reported seeing a woman wearing her hair tucked in a hat and large sunglasses walking away from the vehicle. In surveillance footage, the woman seemed to be carrying a bag and a red backpack, end quote. This same woman would later be seen walking into Starbucks and then would come out in an entirely different outfit before then heading to Lowe's to dispose of some evidence before finally ending her spree, making a phone call using a payphone at a Walmart to call a taxi. Detectives believe that this woman was Jenea Chance and would arrest her 4 days later for her husband's death on August 29th, 2013, but she wasn't charged. So while police thought that Jenea was the one who had murdered her husband and that she was the one found in the video, the district attorney didn't think that the blurry video footage was enough evidence and charges wouldn't be filed against her. But detectives would not give up, and they spent the next couple of years tracking down enough evidence to try and make charges stick. So when Kern County homicide detective Kevin Brewer started to dig a little deeper, he would find out that the couple, along with their family, had visited the CSI experience in Las Vegas when they went on the vacation before Todd's death. The detective would note that there was a lot of eerie similarities between the exhibits at the CSI experience and at the place of Todd Chance's crime scene. This, in conjunction with the nude photos from Todd's ex-fiance and the surveillance footage, would give detectives enough to charge Leslie Jenea Chance with murder once again 3 years later. But this time, the charges would stick. Not only was there more evidence, but there was more than one possible motive. Detectives thought that Jenea might not only have been after her husband's insurance policy, but also mad at him for his illicit online affair as well. Jenea would finally go to trial, and her attorneys would try and say that she was at home the whole time and that she did not commit the crime. They did not, however, have enough evidence to support their narrative and get the jury on their side. So after 8 days of deliberation in January of 2020, Leslie Jenea Chance, 56, would be convicted of first-degree murder of her husband, Todd Chance. Her sentencing took a lot longer than usual as it coincided with the coronavirus, when the coronavirus first blew up, allegations of illness, and her attorney's attempts at motioning for a new trial. However, she would end up being sentenced to 50 years to life for shooting her husband, who was 45 at the time of his death. According to KGET, Assistant District Attorney Andrea Kohler said at Leslie Chance's sentencing, quote, "It is hard to imagine how Todd Chance must have felt that morning when his wife of 17 years pulled out a firearm and shot Todd at point-blank range," end quote. Kern County District Attorney would add, quote, "Chance's meticulous premeditation in the killing of her husband did not prevent our law enforcement community from exposing the truth of Todd Chance's murder," end quote. Until this day, Jenea's and Todd's children advocate for their mother's innocence. Jenea has even tried to appeal her conviction, but has failed. Unfortunately, like usual, there is no happy endings here. There are children who have lost a mother and a father because of things that could have been handled in a very different way. This is something we just see way too much in these kinds of cases. What is perhaps the scariest about this one is that this was a woman who was overseeing children in her day-to-day life, and young ones. She was an elementary school principal who ended up being a murderer hiding in plain sight. Everybody thought she was this pillar of the community. The murder she committed was highly thought out. It wasn't a last-minute decision or just a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing out of a burst of anger, and that's terrifying. With that being said, I'm going to leave you with that thought in your head and to definitely look into whoever is caring for your children. Please don't forget to hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on your post notifications if you have not done so already. If you have any case suggestions, you can comment them down below in the description box or send them to killerconceptsvlog@gmail.com. You can also follow me on social media. Before you go, just remember that the world's most dangerous minds hide in the most unlikely places. Stay safe.